Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Video Mail for the week of October 13th, 2014. Welcome to the site to all of you new members, and welcome back to the old members. The Ask Video Mail is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one, but I need your question if I'm going to answer it, so please send it to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions and I answer the ones that I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question, believe me. And it is the best way to get the most out of the site. I'm excited. Are you excited? Let's get going. You might see, maybe you didn't notice how it was before, but there was a billion things back there. Finally got all the DVDs and Blu-rays out for my Kickstarter backers for the Little Painter. That was really nice to get done. Feels good. Have them all sent out and gone away. Took forever. Gosh. Now, it's funny. There's this whole business, or this whole industry that has actually sprouted out around Kickstarter. There's companies now that handle all of your backer rewards, like sending out DVDs or sending out stuff like that. I might do it for the postcards, and I might do it for the posters. So we'll see. But at any rate, I just knew I had to do the DVDs and Blu-rays myself. Why? Because I wanted them to be signed. So that was a very expensive word I added there. And just to show you guys this is the receipt from the post office. And that's not even all of them. That's just the international ones. So anyway, a lot of fun there. So yeah, let's get down to business here. You know what I'm all about. I'm all about workflow. So this is a simple question, but it's something that I think that everybody has encountered at least one time. If you've animated anything ever, check it out. Good question. Was I right? Have you guys encountered this? I think so. So in general, you want to be doing as little business with the internal foot controls, like the rolls and the toe tap, foot roll, foot bank, heel roll. All these things as possible. You want to be doing as little business with those as possible. So you should try to get back to your foot being in just moving on its own, moving with like the foot control, and not those like internal controls as soon as possible. So let me show you what I mean here. Okay. So here we have Bloke. I love Bloke. He's got this very simple foot setup. In fact, let me just go back to default here. So he's got toe tap, ankle pivot. That pivots from the ankle. Toe pivot, ball swivel, and heel peel, which is basically like your foot roll. All right. So basically, what I'm talking about is this. But let's start from the beginning. Let's start from that moment where the foot's about to go on the ground. Okay. All right. Now we're going to ignore this foot as much as possible. Your foot should have really good contact. And if you remember from my contact lecture, what that means is that there is not that moment where the foot is like placed perfectly at its like most outstretched and the heel is absolutely perfectly on the ground. So right here, translate Y is 0. Okay? And you have a moment like this. And even worse is if you have a moment like this where everything is zeroed. All right? And it's flat on the ground. right after, let me key that, right after this pose, okay? This is like and it's the easiest to do, and I don't blame people for taking this on. I really don't blame everybody for the succumbing to the romance. This can be a very seductive way to key that foot going down, but I say nay. Nay, I say. Let's go here. Okay, so what is better? So if you remember from the contact lecture, this is what I want you to do. Okay, want you to relax and have that moment where the foot has a chance to kind of develop. Okay, and now if you want to place the foot on the ground, okay, so basically 0 the Y. Oops, everything needs a key. My bad. Okay, so this is 0, this is 0. Okay, so if you want to place it, okay, then here's what you do. I like to basically, instead of guessing at what this pose is going to look like I did right here, let me delete that. I like to actually copy this by middle mouse dragging, one key back, hitting S to set key. Okay, now it's placed, but I know that it's a little bit too, it's obviously that thing that I was saying to avoid, which is where you get kind of a feeling where the foot is slowing into a perfect pose on the ground. So I like to rotate it up and bring it a little bit off the ground, okay? All right? So that there's a fast in to the ground, all right? And then this is only, a couple of frames, but if we can, what we'll try to do is we'll try to build a fast in on the Y, okay? So we're kind of doing it, and then I'm just gonna break this handle and build my fast in like that. Okay. Now we obviously don't. The rest of the body isn't working with us yet, and that's okay because we're not animating the full body. We're just showing you the toe, foot roll and toe roll kind of stuff. Okay. So it doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. Just don't worry. Okay. So, yeah. So what we're going to do is kind of first I like to build that. Okay. And then as the foot is starting to come off the ground, what you need to do, let me make this just go a little bit further. Okay. What you need to do is back up from that moment where it's getting pulled and see where it starts feeling comfortable, because it's not right here that you need to start that foot roll. Okay? If you watch a human walking, pretty much when they get over the front of their toe, the heel starts kind of coming to life a little bit. And Bloke has a little bit built in, which is kind of nice. But I'm going to start it right around this frame, okay? Just so that the automatic stuff doesn't kick in. So it's kicking on about 17. He's planting on 5 and 6 or around 5. So, about 3/4 of the way. So I'm going to say 13 or so is good. So I'm going to set a key again. And then I'm going to lift it up so that the foot stays on the ground not as long as possible. That's another common problem. Not as long as possible. Okay? What you'll notice in a walk cycle that you're doing, where you have the 2 feet offset, you're not getting good results if what you're doing is having let's say it's a 12 frame walk cycle. So, 1 to 6 and then 7 to 13, right? If you have your foot on the ground 1 to 6 and then it lifts up on 7 right as the other one plants down, well, that doesn't look good. So what we trying to do is to have a little bit more of that natural movement where the foot is, that planted foot is on the ground for 1 or 2 frames while the other one is planted as well. Okay? So we don't want it on the ground as long as possible, but we don't want it to let it get to the point where it's stretching. So I'm actually going to say that probably around here, just in terms of pose and where it is for the body is probably where it would lift off. So I'm going to animate this up until it gets, somewhere around right there. You don't want it. You also don't want it to be on the ground so long, or choose a pose even rather that for where your body is in relation to your foot, where it's like bent up like this. Okay, because that just doesn't happen either unless you're talking about somebody like power walking, who's like putting a lot of pressure on their feet, or actually like a sprinter as well. So normally it comes up about, I don't know, you could say about halfway. So if this is 90 degrees and this is flat, then maybe 45 degrees is as much as it possibly comes up. All right. Then I hit set to set a key again. What I then do is I then try to come up with as fast as possible that the foot can be back to default. So what I'll do is I'll zero this, okay, and I'll lift the foot up, and I'll rotate it back down so that it's kind of in place, and you can use the frame forward and back to do that, okay? And then I'll just rotate it and move it just so I get a good kind of indication, a little bit of a feeling as to where that foot is coming off the ground. And if you do it right, you get very little kind of like resistance from the rig, because the way that it's called a reverse foot rig. The way that a reverse foot rig kind of works, it's almost designed to work like this, where there's a point sort of in the toe that is controlling the angle between like the heel and the flat part of the foot. Okay, so then I'll just work with this for a little while. And what you'll notice is many characters will have a point where they where their foot looks like it's rotated up too much, and this might be big, and that comes down to character design. Look how big his foot is compared to his leg. It's like longer than his femur, so that's not very realistic, is it? Okay, so I think that this is feeling pretty good, but here's the thing. We want to make sure that this is continuous movement, so it'll give us the wrong impression if we don't go back in and smooth this pretty quickly. But let me show you the last part of this. Last part is to get it moving forward. Now, another common mistake is to have it continue rotating this way. Okay? That's not really what happens. Once the foot kind of like comes up off the ground, it doesn't. If you're not running, running would be this. It would be pushing it off. If you're walking, then you're actually trying to get your foot get your foot by. Okay, so it's not going to like continue rotating crazily. It's actually going to stay rotated this way in order to get by. And once it gets past your body, once it gets right here, then it can rotate up and then, flap down again, right? So it's very common to make that mistake, but you should try to resist it, okay? So this is what I was talking about with the smoothness, right? So this is coming up, but according to what the question that the animator had for this week's video mail, it seems like they're having somewhat of an issue getting this to feel like the pressure is actually coming up off of that foot. So this is what I was talking about in terms of getting this to be smooth continuity-wise, is to look at the translate Z and the translate Y. Let's look at both of them. Well, let's look at the translate Z first. Look at this key and see if we can't get this looking like it's not so much of a hitch on the way off the ground, I mean. Okay. So it probably just needs to be a little bit more forward and then just bent down like that. Because at a certain point, what is actually happening is this foot is already planted while this one is still lifting up, right? We established that that's what we want to do. We established this, right? So the continuity that we're looking for here is the idea that the planted foot is giving us enough of a foundation, enough of a platform to push off of. And I should have made this linear to begin with, so that we have that to be a little bit more accurately to influence us. And then I think I'm on play every frame right now. There we go. And you'll notice there's still a slight hitch. And let me kind of point something out. Watch somebody walking, especially in shoes, from the side, and watch how their foot does come up, and then there's a moment while the weight is shifting that their heel is up, they haven't lifted it up yet. And that is kind of the magic of doing the step with this workflow, which is that if you don't have a point where you're trying to like match it, like remember when I was like right here, and then you go in and work with the smoothness of this foot coming back to life in the Z-axis, then you actually might smooth it too much by doing it in the opposite order, meaning you'll get something that is not realistic because it doesn't have kind of that slight breath of a hitch to it. Okay. And that's my workflow. Basically, from frame 24 to frame 1 is just getting the foot from being behind him and sort of bent downwards to in front of him and sort of upwards. Plant. Okay, like that. Okay. And you're pretty free to just kind of rock and roll from there. Okay, so I think that was a great question. I think that the majority of you have probably encountered something kind of like this. I'm sure in your work. To boil it all down, though, the best thing to do, I think, is to, as soon as possible, stop. Don't work in air with like 6 different channels of like heel roll and toe roll and whatever. Another thing is people, it's very, very cute to do, and maybe if you're animating the Smurfs or like a Christmas elf, you can do it, but people put far too much toe flap on their feet when they have a walking character, especially in shoes. Pretty much there's like no movement at all. Certainly not like governed by overlap. So like that floppy pancake footstep, that just does not happen. But if you're doing it stylistically, I can understand you want to go there. It's fine. It's your prerogative. But I feel like I see way too much of it. But definitely, if your workflow right now is to be working in air with like 6 different controls, like building like this weird like foot pose with like toe tap and heel roll, ball roll, toe pivot, ankle roll, and all this stuff. No. Get back to just working with the foot controller as soon as you can. Now that doesn't mean a 1-frame transition. at all. I basically mine is like 3 or 4 frames, okay, and then I smooth that out. I smooth that translate C. All right. Great question. You know where to send them, guys, right? Webmaster@kennyroy.com. Look forward to seeing more questions. It's been a blast. I'm Kenny Roy. Good luck with your animation. As always, rock on.